In the heart of winter's merciless chill, my ex-wife deserted our children at the echoing emptiness of my home to indulge in a fleeting date, leaving me locked in a relentless battle for full custody and true justice. I, a 38-year-old man scarred by a year of bitter divorce, now faced this turmoil alongside my 37-year-old ex and our two little ones, aged 10 and 7. Although our current custody arrangement splits their time evenly between our separate worlds, I'm still compelled to funnel child support to her during her share, even though my income towers over hers, forcing me to shoulder both alimony and support. Our split was anything but amicable. Endless quarrels had soured our final years together, and in our last, thunderous clash, she screamed that she wished our union had never been. In that charged moment, I left without looking back, filing for divorce while she never once reached out to salvage what was lost. A mere 6 months after our separation, a mutual friend revealed that she had already begun seeing another man, an announcement that stung deeply, though I chose to remain silent, conversing solely about our children because I once believed she cared for them well. But even that fragile hope was about to shatter. Not long ago, an act of callous neglect confirmed that she was utterly unworthy of our children's trust. 10 days passed. While I was away on a business trip with a scheduled return in 3 days, our arrangement was clear. She would drop the kids off at my place on day 2, and I would take over since it was my designated turn. I had informed her of my trip and gently requested that she look after them for those extra days. She even sent screenshots affirming her promise. Embarking on my journey with a cautious peace of mind, I was stunned the following evening when my son's trembling call pierced the line, asking why I was absent, since his mother had supposedly dropped them at my doorstep. Instead, the children had been ringing the doorbell for a grueling 15 minutes in vain, left shivering outside in the biting cold. I hurriedly instructed them to seek refuge with our neighbors, convinced that her mistake would soon be rectified. Alas, fate compounded the error. Our neighbors were away, and the street, nestled in a brand-new neighborhood where most houses remained uninhabited except for an elderly couple across the way, offered no sanctuary. Panic surged as my son revealed that not only were the neighbors absent, but there was no one around to help. I paused only long enough to call his mother, pleading for her to retrieve the children from my door and bring them to safety, desperate to shield them from the cruel kiss of frost. I expected a swift apology and immediate rescue. Instead, to my horror, she coldly declared that, since it was technically my turn, the responsibility now lay with me. Stunned into silence, I implored her once more, for the sake of our kids, not myself, but her call ended abruptly, her shaking voice dissolving into nothingness. Desperate, I texted again, only to be met with her dismissive claim that she was running late for a date with her boyfriend, celebrating 8 months together. By then, over 20 minutes had slipped away, and the children had endured nearly 35 minutes in the relentless grip of winter. With no alternative, I dialed Child Protective Services to report the dire situation. They arrived within minutes, whisking my little ones away from my forlorn doorstep to the temporary safety of my parents' house on the outskirts, a place they could not have reached on their own, given their tender age. With my in-laws long gone and other relatives unavailable until my return, my parents' home was our only refuge. I formally reported my ex-wife for deliberate neglect and endangerment, and when officers found the kids huddled on my front steps, clutching my son's blanket as their sole defense against the cold, I was overwhelmed by a mix of guilt and grim relief. Her subsequent arrest for negligence within hours felt like a vindication, a dark promise that she would soon face severe consequences for her callousness. After returning from that agonizing trip, silence reigned between us for days until I finally embraced my children. Sitting down with them for a long, heartfelt conversation about the chaos that had unfolded, I offered my sincere apologies for not being there in person. I vowed that such neglect would never happen again, promising to fight for full custody so that they would always remain safely by my side. Yet, when my eldest beamed with an almost unsettling relief at the thought, a prick of discomfort tore through me, for I had once believed that despite everything, my ex had been a decent mother, having cared for them when we were together. But as I pressed him on why he now appeared so joyous at the prospect of leaving her home, his voice faltered before confessing that she had forbidden him from speaking with me about these matters. That revelation unsettled me deeply. Eventually, he confided that life at his mother's had grown unbearably harsh. Suddenly, she had banned all candy and junk food for half the month, condemning them to a monotonous diet of flavorless porridge and oats at every meal, a regimen he mockingly dubbed sick food, not for its quality, but because it resembled the bland fare I reserved for them when they were ill. Even weekends offered little variation, merely a slice of toast with a thin smear of dip. She insisted that this austere routine was for their own good, yet I couldn't fathom how a diet stripped of meat and vegetables could possibly nurture them. Moreover, when I questioned her strict prohibitions against inviting friends over, going on sleepovers, or even allowing them a modest treat while shopping, my children revealed that any deviation from her rigid rules was met with harsh reprimands. The most painful blow came with the realization that she had explicitly forbidden them from confiding these daily indignities in me. Confounded and heartbroken, I resolved to confront her directly about the cruelty our children were silently enduring. I reached out to her with a steely calm, only to be met with an eruption of accusations. She berated me for calling the cops and reporting her, as if I'd betrayed her. Ignoring the torrent of her defensive shouts, I pressed for answers about the grievances my children had endured. The inconsistencies were impossible to ignore. I had been remitting enough support to provide for their needs, yet they complained of never having enough to eat, wear, or even play with. Demanding the truth, I was met with her dismissive claim that she was in the throes of a job transition and couldn't spare extra funds for them. This feeble excuse rang hollow, especially since the child support and the alimony from my robust income should have guaranteed a comfortable life for them. Our argument escalated until, at last, she snapped and declared that her finances were none of my concern, before abruptly disconnecting the call. The sting was sharp. It wasn't her money at all but mine, meant solely for our children's welfare. Convinced of her deceit, my lawyer and I resolved to not only pursue full custody but also to press charges for child abuse and neglect. Given her blatant disregard for their safety. With a criminal case already looming over her for leaving them exposed in the cold, I knew that further legal retribution was inevitable. In the ensuing week and a half, the situation worsened until, just days ago, she was formally served with court papers. On that very day, she called, her voice awash with insincere, crocodile tears, only because she realized she was about to lose custody. I suspected her call was motivated not by maternal love, but by the desperate hope of retaining the financial support. I told her plainly that she had engineered this disaster herself and that I could no longer trust her with our kids. In response, she feigned a threat of reclaiming them later, a claim I dismissed coldly. When she tearfully confessed that she couldn't survive without them, citing the child support as her lifeline during unemployment, my suspicions were confirmed. She craved custody for the money, not for genuine care. Disgust welling up inside me, I prepared to end the call when I overheard her friend, a lawyer, urging her to abandon the money talk and focus on the lawsuit. Abruptly, she shifted the subject, insisting that I shouldn't sue her for something as trivial as this because she was already overwhelmed by legal battles scheduled to start in just a few days, not to mention another lawsuit looming that very week. I had already informed my coworkers and boss that I'd be taking frequent breaks for court, but her financial woes were not my burden. I reminded her sharply of the very same words she had once hurled when she abandoned our children at my door, a spiteful retort that now underscored her injustice. It was clear, despite the steady flow of alimony and support, she was depriving our children of a nurturing home and instilling in them a fear that kept them silent. To me, suing her and fighting for full custody was not only justified but necessary to protect them from a selfish, deceitful presence. Even as she began bawling like a child, accusing me of cruelty and lamenting her impending loss, I felt no remorse. Nothing could undo the neglect she had so callously inflicted. Update 1. In the 2 days following my initial post, a resolute clarity settled over me. I felt no guilt. The support and counsel from all of you, along with my parents' unwavering faith in my actions, fortified my determination. It became undeniable that the funds I had been sending for our children were never used for their benefit, but were instead squandered entirely on her own indulgences. Although we no longer tracked one another on social media and our mutual friends seldom reached out, owing largely to my busy work schedule, I eventually confided in a few close companions. Through their insights, I pieced together the truth of her financial status. My children mentioned that, while she claimed to be home most days, on weekends she would vanish for hours, leaving them with indifferent neighbors or sometimes a distant relative who only appeared at dawn. I suspected she had meticulously instructed them to withhold these details from me, and as they grew more silent, my suspicion deepened. Reluctantly, I set aside my moral reservations and began a discreet investigation. Regrettably, having unfollowed her on social media meant I was out of the loop regarding her daily escapades. By borrowing a friend's account, I discovered a torrent of images, lavish nights at clubs, endless rounds of drinks, sun-soaked beach outings, and romantic getaways with her boyfriend at ostentatiously expensive hotels. The glossy feed of a self-styled influencer starkly contradicted her earlier claims of financial hardship. My friends admitted they had refrained from mentioning this discrepancy, perhaps out of deference or because I had distanced myself after our college days, memories now best left behind. Now, with undeniable evidence, it was clear she had fabricated a narrative to extract more money from me, even if it meant subjecting our children to a miser's neglect. My heart hardened completely. I felt not an ounce of guilt, only a firm conviction that she deserved every misfortune now unfolding. Update 2. Hi folks, your comments and updates have been a lifeline. My ex-wife and I are now entrenched in a legal battle, with our second hearing slated for the day after tomorrow. In a surprising twist, she capitulated in the custody dispute, even offering to relinquish her parental rights because she claimed she couldn't afford the legal fees for all 3 cases. Consequently, full custody has been granted to me, allowing me to finally breathe without the constant dread of her influence. As for the lawsuit, it's steadily tilting in my favor. The situation escalated further when her boyfriend, making a colossal miscalculation, contacted me, seemingly expecting sympathy if he recounted their side of the story. Instead, his call ignited my fury, reinforcing the belief that my ex had chosen a fledgling romance over the welfare of our children, an act I found utterly intolerable. Fortuitously, I had recorded the call. Initially, I feared a threat, but he merely pleaded for the proceedings to halt, insisting that my ex had been laboring diligently as a freelancer ever since abandoning her stable job post-divorce. According to him, she was struggling to support herself, the children, and even him. I questioned whether her extravagant club outings and lavish trips truly counted as hard work, and he had no convincing reply, only a desperate insistence that it was all a facade concealing her financial struggles, compounded by using her savings to fund his advanced studies. That final revelation was the last straw. I ended the call and blocked him, convinced that every misdirected dollar had deprived our children of the life they deserved. Rest assured, she will soon be made to pay for her neglect, and I will see to it that justice prevails. Update 3. Hey guys, it's been a while, and I truly appreciate your concern. I'm now in a much better place, and so are the kids, here with me. Their smiles are genuine, and they rarely speak of their mother anymore. The court's verdict was unequivocal. She lost the battle, and now she owes me a substantial sum. Moreover, she can no longer indulge in reckless outings with her boyfriend or frivolous nights with friends, a bizarre twist for a woman in her late 30s with 2 children. I remain baffled by her choices, squandering money at nightclubs and on extravagant vacations while neglecting her parental duties was simply absurd. Ultimately, I have severed all ties with her, determined never again to let her mismanagement of our lives disturb my hard-won peace.